And so you can imagine what type of advice is going to come from that. Which, I know for our generation sounds weird, but for them, I guess it's remembering how they grew up. But my mindset is always, but hold on a minute, when we're looking at the love of Christ and how we need to be towards each other, it's not a stiff type of love. It's one that's flexible, it's one that's soft, and it's one that is harsh when it needs to be.
Bro.
You know, and I think our generation, I think we are best equipped to show that love because of the things that we've been through. We're also running from a place that it makes it very difficult to even get there in the first place. Because we got to really decondition ourselves from the things that we have been taught. Because it's a weird mix. People want that type of love, but we do things to prevent ourselves getting that type of love. You know, so we have to really decondition ourselves. Because if we're able to do that, trust me, we'll be like, I always say, like, receiving proper love is transformative. Any woman who hasn't received that, sometimes I don't even bother about the things that she might say, because I know when she's able to receive that love, she will be transformed. Same like a man, when he receives that respect, he will be transformed as a person. It's about just getting there.
I'll preface what you said, Jay. You said everybody wants that kind of love and does things that make it not possible to receive it. I'm paraphrasing, that was more or less. But one of the things I'll say is everybody wants that type of love, but are they willing and able to offer that type of love to others? And I think that's the first consideration. I think that, and maybe what I'm going to say is a bit controversial, but when you enter into any form of relationship with the mind of what you want to receive and what you want to gain from it, it can be a dangerous mindset to adopt when you're entering a relationship. You know, each person entering into that relationship should really have a mind of what they're bringing to the table, what they're going to do, how they're going to serve. And that more than likely is going to change and evolve as you learn about the person that you're serving. Okay, I actually didn't know this person was like this. Okay, I've got to adapt. I've got to change. Okay, my list of to-dos, I've got to change it. And sometimes that's the problem, that we were so set that this is the list, nothing more, nothing less. Oh, now I've got to do this. Oh my God, are you kidding me? I never ever thought I would have to do that. Never ever thought I'd have to put up with this or tolerate that. But here it is. You put a ring on it and you married it. It's called your wife or your husband. You got to step up, you know, it's part and parcel of being married, you know. Part and parcel.
I just wanted to address
Thanks, TD.
Yeah, oh sorry, bro. Sorry.
No, go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Sorry, TD, thank you. I wanted to address a comment in there. Trolling or not, I don't care. I wanted to address it. And his name's Kong. Interesting. Look, if everybody was left to their own devices to find their own way, I think that we have great problems. And British American society is an example of that. Everyone finding their own way is just chaos. Ultimately, we need a way. That's my personal belief. You know, the thing that has informed me about what to do, and let me tell you, I'm only here because of what I've learned. I'm here because I've read some things in scripture that have shown me that to put others first, and I'm talking about my family and my wife, to put them first is not natural to humanity. Humanity is there to serve itself. Given, you know, if we're asking people to put the Bible down and find God themselves, people are going to try and find the God that's them. Because what other standard do we have to look for but the one that we want? In fact, the standard that Christ has given me is outside of my nature. Like there's things naturally, especially early in the marriage, that I don't want to do, but I have to do. The same thing Paul talked about. Like there's a side of me that wants this. That's the side of me that's seeking self. That has not served my marriage, and it does not serve any marriage. Actually, I need a standard outside of me and outside of her that works for us both. It just means now that I have to, I'm choosing to subscribe to Christianity. because it is a very high standard that works for me, and I think for humanity. But it's not just Christianity that works for marriages as well. But I subscribe to Christianity. But what a lot of religions will purport is that we need a structure and we need to be more selfless. So I can't put down my Bible because I have something that is guiding me and it saved me. It's not just my marriage, it saved me. I just wanted to address that really. Yeah.
Yeah, some dangerous bars Conley's dropping, I'm not gonna lie. Some really dangerous bars, man. Man, that is a can of worms into all sorts of things, man. I mean, it's the reason why the world has no direction today. You know, be what thou will shall be all of the law. Man, because it works in some situations with some people, and maybe you are the standard. Maybe you are the person we should all call to ascertain and to, you know, discern. But bro, listen, when you got people like Adolf Hitler, you got people out there who just say, yep, I'm going to drop a nuke and that's the right thing to do. Nothing you say is going to, you know, like
Crusaders.
Like, you know, and it's like, God is going to bless it. God spoke to me. Listen, bro, do your research. There are a lot of people who said God spoke. Some of the most dangerous words that can be uttered from anybody, especially Christians, is God spoke to me and said, I should do this. And when you say ditch the Bible, bro, man,
crazy.
Bro, do you know the history of the Bible? Do you know the pains that God that you know orchestrated so that we could have scripture today? Man, no, bro. Ditch your mind, ditch your heart, ditch what you're thinking. That's what I say, bro. Because when you're checked by the word of God, you become the type of person that may even dare to even say ditch the Bible. The only reason you can have that confidence is because of the Bible, bro. Because you're hopefully, I assume you're a Christian. Maybe you're not a Christian. Maybe you're just telling us to kind of trust the universal consciousness and all of these nice things that people say nowadays. But I mean, they've been saying it for a long time. But bro, man, dangerous words, man. Dangerous words.
You know, I'll come off that as well. My favorite scripture is Revelation 3:19, right? For whom I love, I correct and rebuke. The Bible even tells us that our flesh is weak. So, and as you alluded to, different people, you can say use your conscience. And yeah, there's common sense that comes to what is right or wrong. But we can see out in the world throughout how many generations, some people truly believe what they're doing is right. And there's nothing you can tell them. So that's why I fully understand needing something outside of yourself to correct you. Even when you're in your stubbornness, even when you are in your anger, even when you're in your justifiable toxicity, it's the wrong thing to do. And if you're just leading with, you know what, forget God, forget the correction, forget rebuke, forget the guidance, forget the wisdom, forget all of these things, that's a very dangerous place for any man to place himself in, especially when it comes to marriage. And that's something to be careful of, ladies. Because especially as Christian women, if you want to, you know, you want to marry a Christian man and all that comes with it, be very careful about, I'm not saying this is specifically about Con, but be very careful about wolf in sheep's clothing. That they will put on that hat, put on that garment, but it's not truly inside. And they will talk about things in such a way where you don't need much of God, where you don't need much of the Bible. Don't worry, we will do it. Don't worry, we can trust in ourselves, maybe trust in crystals, trust in star signs. These things you need to be careful of, because the word is truly that guide. That the word is truly the revelation. So I'll say to everyone, just lift up your Bible and truly say, this is what I'm following. That's it. And I'm not just saying exactly what the text says, but I'm also saying, ask for God to give you revelation about the text as well, about the things that it's not saying. You know, read the paragraphs, read the books, understand, okay, why was this written? Like, all these things come into it. Because there's a lot of people who will go against the word, but they don't fully understand it. But that's okay, because the word hasn't truly been revealed to them yet. So I'm never going to go against them. But what Jesus did when he sat with the pagans, he still spoke about it. He still gave them. He still planted seeds. So I'm not going to go and be negative against anyone like that. But this is what we're doing. We're saying, we get what you're saying, but this is what it is.
Word.
Yeah.
Well, indeed. Okay, I guess you guys sorted it out. Love that, man. And just maybe a slight addition. I guess I'm going back to the very beginning of the conversation, talking about servitude, and I think it's a very important piece of relationship when it comes to marriage, and because we already have somebody who has given us a model. So the model that we saw was what Christ did, which is, even though he is, let's call it far superior to man, right? In this particular instance, what he does on earth is that he comes and he serves. So at a point that even Peter is at a point saying, don't wash my feet, bro. Like, leave my feet alone, and then Jesus like, no, I have to do this. And of course that's all in accordance with the fact that he's been called to do something. But again, it does show again that the humility of Christ to be able to serve people, man. And that was the kind of first instance in terms of what true love is. And so that's supposed to be instituted too in a marriage, that I'm supposed to serve you in all facets as I can. And I do that in love. So the difficulty here is what you guys were actually kind of touching upon, which is the preface of going on to what we call pragma love. If your marriage is consistently full of pragma love, which I think a lot of Africans, let me just say from my experience, a lot of old school Africans have pragma love, which is it's duty. So even though the love may not be in the eros or be in the ludos of playfulness, it might not necessarily be in those areas that keep the spark alive. A lot of Africans love the pragma love, which is it's a duty I must do, irrespective. But like you were saying, Curtis, it's not great. It's not great because once it stays there, it becomes monotonous, right, and unfulfilling. So as human beings, we do need that spark. We need that energy. And we're all Christians here. We know how it feels when you're on fire for God, and we know how it feels when the heavens are shut. The two ain't the same. When you feel like you can't hear nothing, it's painful, or when you feel like you're dull and you're not sharp, it's painful. So the same way with a marriage, you want it to be sharp, you want it to be full of fire, you want it to be full of zest and passion. And that is where the hard work normally comes in, keeping that fire alive. And that comes oftentimes through how best can I serve you? And that sometimes can be the conflict in the relationship, because how best you can serve me may be different to how best I can serve you. And they may be conflicting. So there may be times where the wires begin to cross because, let's say, for instance, we talk about even career in the Western world. Both man and woman can go into a career. All right. Let's say he's got an amazing career, but let's say she's got an amazing career. Now we've got a whole conflict around about how we see marriage and how we see the relationship. And this is my final word on this. I spoke to a lady on the plane when I was in America last year, and on the plane from Atlanta to DC, and we're having a conversation, and I just asked her, because she was having a good conversation with me, a white woman actually, and I asked her, like, so how long have you been married? She said 18 years. I said, fantastic, great. Let me get some knowledge of this woman. I said, so like, how'd you not do it? Like, like how'd you do it? Because you're a very high powered woman. She does tech and law, and her role is very high. Now I'm going to give this caveat. I'm going to make it a caveat. Okay, because I don't want anyone to take this and run with it. Okay, because this is not for everybody. But the caveat was, what she said was, because her role's so high, and so is his role so high as well, right? The intersection of their beef that they had was around her role increasing the more, meaning her time spent at home would be considerable less. What the husband also felt was, as soon as her role was going to increase again, because she's already got a high power role, but she's gonna take on more responsibility. What he felt was this would draw him more into having to concede some ground. So now they were having this beef about who would concede. Do you understand? And I got her point, because she said, I also believe in legacy. For her, she believes in legacy. She's the first woman in the space, one of the first women in the space that she's in. Do you understand? So if she doesn't broker this, someone else will have to take on this role, and someone else will have to make this choice. Someone else will have to do what she's going to do. Do you know what I mean? So she also sees it as, I don't want to give up necessarily that space, because at the same time too, I believe that this is historical. So what I said to her was, okay, so how did you guys resolve it? She said they had to come to some kind of compromise, but it's still a sore point. And they are it's one of those things that has to be worked out almost over time. There is no full resolution as of such, right? Because for her, she's like, of course, she's a mom, but at the same time, she's a businesswoman, and she wants to make her marriage work and wants her marriage to flourish, but she also understands her career at the same time. So in my head, my first thought is like, baby, just give it up. But also in my head, I said, but why should she give it up? And I said, is that the viable solution? Is that the solution that's going to keep the marriage a stoke and a flame? Is that going to cause resentment in the long run? Did he know who he married when he first got with her? I started asking major questions, because the first answer would have been like, just darling, just climb down, just climb down. And she said, it's not that she wants to be stubborn about it, but she sees legacy and she wants to be able to broker that. So I understood where she was coming from, and he knew what woman he married. So she said her advice, and my final point on this, her advice was this: you have to, as a person, because she was in a relationship with someone before she got with him, before she got married. And her advice was, you need to understand what woman you marry. And I actually, this is the part I agreed with her. Yeah. I said, if I married you knowing that you are a high flying getter, I cannot now be cutting your wings. If I knew you are high bird flying, I can't clip your wings now. Like you were saying, TD, earlier on, the same thing also goes for the men too. If you marry a Nabal, you got to know what you're marrying. But if also you marry someone who is, I don't know, let's say a Deborah, you've got to be aware that I've married Deborah. I cannot now clip Deborah's wings because I feel like it. It means I'm going to have to find some type of compromise to make this work. Yeah. I'm going to have to find a work around this issue. And so it was a powerful moment. So she said, some people have to marry hybrids. And she said the ones that the most hate that she gets is not from hybrids. She gets the most hate that she gets when this conversation gets spoken about is from women that are that stay at home. They look at her and they get annoyed because she's like, you're having the best of both worlds. But she said, listen, you need to know what type of woman you want to marry. Is it a hybrid, a woman that's career focused but family too? Somebody who's career, or do you want to marry somebody who's a home, like just wants to stay at home and stuff? You have to decide that. And I thought that was so powerful because my first instance was to tell her, sit your ass down and let this marriage work. But I remembered that how would this marriage last in terms of passion if I clip your wings? So just a little put at that question. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in and add a 2 cents to that, how they feel about that conversation, because that was interesting for me. You know what I mean? That was interesting for me.
I'm going to give it a go. Kojo, just cut me off at 3 minutes here because...
okay, go for it.
Some of the comments in the comments are a bit like...
No hate, no hate.
Some serious ginger there. So first, I'm going to address something Naomi NYC said. She said, there's some situations you face in a marriage that the Bible doesn't help. I understand what you're trying to say, but I respectfully disagree, okay? The Bible doesn't speak directly to everything, okay? But from scripture, we can infer and receive guidance as to how to manage and deal with our daily challenges and situations. It's about rightly dividing the word of truth. So, okay, if you're going to seek professional counseling, I would also advise seek godly counseling, because you'll find, if you find the right person, they will show you the right scripture and words spoken fitly are like golden apples. A word spoken fitly is like a golden apple. So I'm going to leave it there to speak to what Naomi NYC said. My brother Kong or sister, or I don't know, because you're contradicting yourself. You're saying that God speaks to humans, but the Bible was put in a box. The Bible puts God in a box because it was written by humans. But you just said God speaks to humans. So decide, make up your mind. Either God doesn't speak to humans, so they've written a book that is putting God in a box and should be abandoned, or God does speak to humans, which the Bible asserts itself, and The Bible asserts that it was written by men who are inspired by God through his spirit to give counsel, direction, instructions on how we live our lives. Okay. And the truth is that, yeah, none of us is saying God doesn't speak directly to people, but how do you determine what is the word of God? Because I can say, God told me to punch you. And Kojo could say, God told him to push Jay Anderson off the top of a building. How do you check that? If we all say God said and we don't check it, like the world will turn into chaos. So how do we check it? Well, the reference point is the word of God, because that is decodified word. So, okay, does what you say God said to you align with God's divine word, which he transmitted throughout time to reach us, through time, from another, completely from a dimension outside of time into time, to communicate with us? Does it align with that? If it aligns with that, okay, we can be confident that, yeah, more than likely God is speaking to this person, but if not, bro, it's not just by come and say God said that God is speaking to you, bro. You feel me? Yeah. Coach, I'm gonna say, man, such situations and circumstances, they need a preface. It's one of those situations when you look at it, it's like they should have had the conversation before they got married.
That's why I was
They
going to go.
should have gone deep. They should have really turned over the tables, because it may have been inevitable if he knew who he was marrying. It may have been something that was inevitable. And sometimes part of the beef is, I did not prepare for this. Shoot, why are you giving me trouble? Because now I've got to work on myself. Now I've got to evolve, and I don't want to evolve. I'm comfortable with where I'm at. You are presenting me with challenge that is contrary to my vision for myself. But your wife is your help meet. That's her design. That's her purpose in the relationship. God said it's not good for man to be alone. I will give him a help meet. So respectfully, God has given you a help meet, and brother, you got to grow, man. You got to grow. This is the direction she's going in, man. You got to figure it out. I'm not saying that she should just chuck the job and stay at home. I'm not saying that, you should just let her be and let her just climb into, up the Tower of Babel into the heavens. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying, bro, you got to take the time, invest the time. Like Curtis was saying, it's not overnight. I don't know why we have this sense of, because it's not a bed of roses, because I've got a problem that's lasting longer than I want it to last. Okay, all of a sudden this thing's out of whack. Man, let's humble ourselves. Let's climb off our high horse. This fast food generation, everything we want quick turnaround. Like sometimes it doesn't work like that. Sometimes God is trying to teach you something that you have to go through the process to learn. The experience will. There's a scripture I like, and I suppose it's arguable whether this is the interpretation, but Jesus says in Revelation, he says, I counsel you to buy of me gold tried by fire. There has to be some testing so that thing can shine. That thing can be real. That thing can be beautiful. But there has to be that testing and that trying. I'll leave it there.
Jay.
Yeah.
I feel you, man.
Do you know what, TD? I think you addressed the comments perfectly, so I won't even address that now. I hadn't even read the new ones anyway, so I'll leave that alone. Unless, Curtis, you want to address it as well. But so I'll just stick to the topic. So one thing that Bible continuously teaches us in general as Christians is to live with each other. And we have to find a way to do that. Even in divorce, right? The line that is used is, so let's say I'm the court, tell me why you can no longer live with this person. So the idea is, I've chosen this person in my life. I need to do everything that I can to live with this person instead of pull away. And as you alluded to, TD, that starts from before you even get there. So I'll give an example. Myself and my missus, right? We agreed when we are married, we might look at living in a different country, and that might be Dubai, etc. Because what we do on our day-to-day, there would be great opportunities, tax-free, you know how that goes, just living abroad for 2 or 3 years and then coming back to be able to do certain things here. But we agreed when we're married, we will look at it. If it doesn't serve us, then we won't do it. But when we're married, we'll look at it. But whilst we're not married, it's an automatic no. And the reason why we agreed it is because of the issues that comes with long distance. Because I wouldn't be going with her. She'd be going with her by herself. I wouldn't be, she wouldn't be coming with me. I'd be going by myself, right? So we acknowledged that's not going to be helpful in our journey. And a lot can happen that are going to pull us apart. But in marriage, we already have an agreement. Let's look at it. But if we decide no, it has to be a collective decision, one's not going to be over there, one's not going to be over here, because we have to serve the marriage. We have to serve the purpose.
Bro.
That's an opportunity, great.
Bro.
But there'll be other things that we can do. There is an opportunity in life, right? So when it comes to this topic, I'm not going to say what the man and woman should do, because they have to figure out for themselves. But I have to say, don't allow this to jeopardize the marriage. This is what you like. Think about it. And we can all be like, oh, but I want to, but I want to, but I want to. That's fine. And I'm not saying some of these conversations, sometimes you can have these conversations in theory, but when you're married and then you decided, let's say, have a new lease of life, change career, down the line, these things can crop up because of the decisions that you've now made to go down a different path. But the foundation needs to always be there. You need to be able to have these conversations and think about, what is that foundation? What is that purpose? Does this align with it?
Yeah.
And this is where the word comes into it. So anyone saying forget about the word, it's the word that teaches these things. Even when, again, you feel like, no, but I want, that's the man or woman. What is the word teaching you to do?
Word.
Make a decision that's going to serve your marriage. If it may take time to get there, but in the meantime, you're going to be working together right now, fine, do that. But don't abandon what you're building just to go and do what you want to do. Even if it's for legacy, even if it's for other people, you have to be very careful. I'll give one last example very quickly, 20 seconds. On Clubhouse a few years ago, I was talking to a woman, right? And she let her marriage dissolve because she was focused so much on her ministry, basically. And when she was telling us, tears were pouring, you can't see her, but tears were pouring through her eyes. I said, wow, like, I'm not going to look at that situation as, oh my gosh, that wow, you gave up no, marriage is your first ministry. And my mind was, you shouldn't have done that. Now, with the guy, let's just say, if he gave her an ultimatum, that wouldn't be fair. But what should have come first is their marriage, and they should have found a way to make it work with this ministry in hand. Not abandon the marriage or let the marriage fail just to work in this ministry. Because if this ministry is done today or things don't work out, what do you now have? And you can see that she was feeling it. So these are the things people need to be aware of as, they really look into things. But that's it for me.
Man, I want to echo everything because, look, let's take it from even before that then, just to put what we're all saying in perspective. People, you one of the things that you need before you tie the knot is a vision of where you want to go, what you want, and you have to protect that. I'm going to give you an example of what it looks like to literally protect it. It means that you have to be prepared to give up anything. Like if you have a prepared to give up anything mindset to protect this marriage, those things can be resolved very quickly. I just want to be clear, like, are you prepared to give up your career to save your marriage? Like, that's a lot. And some people are thinking, why would I need to do that? But we've got a clear example from Kojo. Like, this could be it. And it's and really, they can work this out.
Yeah.
She can either give it up or go ahead with it. But what's deeper than that is self. I don't know the couple, but I'm going to assume both of them have a self issue. Do you know what I mean? And you got to know look, I got into marriage. I didn't know a lot. I've learned this the hard way. So I'm speaking to someone like my feet are very much on the ground when I'm talking. I'm saying that I have learned that I have to be prepared to give up a lot to make this work, because I'm not trying to win this battle. Look, how much money or how much position, it's not even the money, it's the position as well, right? I've got to be careful. I have to be very careful here. I also want to address something else. Servitude. It doesn't always have a feeling behind it. Yeah, servitude is also a sense of duty. And so when you're tired and when you're not feeling it, you still do it. I look back at the grandparents. I look back at some of my African counterparts, and I'm like, although we may look down on them for leaving out the relational side of things, the duty side of it, you have to look up to it. Because without that, Africa would fall apart. Do you understand? The West Indies would fall apart. South America, India, the whole world would fall apart if people went by how they feel.
Say again.
Like we don't, like, look, I'm going to give an example. Look, I'm blowing my own trumpet. I've been told I don't. I'm just letting you all know I don't blow my own trumpet. I went to therapy and they told me that I need to celebrate myself. So now and again, I'll drop a couple. You know what I mean? I came in from work yesterday. I'm a social worker. And I'm looking at my lady. She started to cook. She just got the ingredients out. Because she finished work as well. And it's half term and that. And I looked at her, we looked at each other. She goes, look, can you just take over? And I just did it. No questions. I cooked. I came in 5 minutes later. I cooked the dinner. What does that feel like? It feels like I don't want to have to do that. But actually, because of the vision, now understand, I've had to develop this over time. This didn't come. I didn't get a boom revelation. You understand? This comes through like Kong. Pure love to you. I know I came at you kind of hard, but I came anyway to defend the faith. But the Christ model teaches me to be out of my feelings. And imagine what it's like when, you know, like in my church, in my old church, we used to do something called communion, and you have to wash your brother's feet, innit? And there were certain people's feet. He said, you get a basin of water, you get a cloth, and every 13 weeks we wash each other's feet. And there were some people, there's some old men there that like, I'm like, well, I don't want to wash their feet, man, because, you know, the toes, the skin, you know what I mean? But I learned over time, I need to look for the person that I really whose feet I don't want to wash. I need to look for the person, and this is biblical teaching, you know what I'm saying? I need to look for the person who I've had a little bit of beef with. And this is Christ is talking to us and giving us this level of servitude that you need as a human, not as a Christian, a human, so that the world can still turn, so that homes can still stay together. And that's hard. That teaches us how to let go of nonsense and to just work it out. And that also means like, and the thing is, this is the thing about communion. The washing of the feet is one thing. It's drying in between someone's toes that you don't know. A 70-year-old man's toes. That's why the world turns. And so what I'm really saying is that the mindset coming into relationships needs to be selfless more than anything. So that if, Kojo, given your situation that you just presented, both of them are arguing about who's going to give up first, as opposed to we're both holding on to our position. That's what servitude looks like in reality, if the vision is clear. That's it.
Man,
I love it.
Before we go, just to say, the story, I left parts out on purpose because I wanted you guys to give your sentiments. They actually worked it out. Neither of them gave up their career path. They hired more people into the household to sort out the things that they couldn't do. So they actually came to that conclusion that they were going to hire more people to help manage other things in the business, etc. Then she said, I underplayed her particular role a little bit just to kind of give an example. So actually, what actually happened was what happened is she actually got a promotion. So it's not that she even had a choice. She got promoted. And when she went home to tell him that she got a promotion, he was downcast. And she could see that. So she was happy. And then she saw him, and then he was downcast about the promotion. So she was hurt. But she said, obviously, they've been together for 18 years. She knows him. She went to him and said, "What's up?" And he said, "No, nothing." And she said, "I can see that it's more than nothing. So I want to know what's up. I'm listening. I'm ready to hear what you got to say." Then he explained, he said, he already started assuming that with her getting this promotion, it would mean they would have less time together. They're both very high earners and very successful people. He's probably just a little bit more successful than she is. So it's not like he's going to suffer financially or anything like that. But it was the time issue that he felt like would be taken away from them too, because the job would require even more of her time. It would require her to go around countries and stuff like that and do stuff. And so he had already started assuming how this would affect their relationship going forward. So he couldn't really celebrate her promotion. And she said, "I appreciate you sharing that. I didn't realize that was what you were thinking, because I was hurt in that moment, because I had just been promoted. I gave you the information, and your first reaction was kind of like a deep sigh, right? They eventually worked it out. They hired more people so they could actually, have more time together and whatever. But even after the conversation, she said, like, just the one thing that he was appreciative of was that she actually asked what was up with him and why he felt the way he did, rather than screaming at his neck. Because the first thing that we can do, which we're all guilty of, is that when someone hurts us, the first thing to do is to go at them. But he said he appreciated the fact that she wanted to find out what was up and why he might have reacted the way he did. And that's where they actually bonded. Do you understand? And he was even more willing to give up whatever to make it work. Do you get it? So I left that part of the story just so that we can get that basis on. But that's the reality of things. Sometimes it's not even that the person needs to give up anything. Sometimes people just want to be heard. And they have their own fear and they have their own trauma that they're going through. And that's why they're reacting the way they're reacting. So that's why I said she made me check myself without even asking me to check myself. Because my first thing was, baby, just forget the promotion. You understand? Quit the promotion, baby. That's the first thing, to just keep it easy. But, as she said what she said, I said, okay, no. Do you know what? I need to think about why that was my first thought. Why was there no other solutions on the table, whereas we could maybe potentially both win? Why was that not a solution on my table? Why was the first thing that one of us has to quit to make it work? You understand? So that's the aspect of I was trying to come about. Yeah. TD, go for it and then continue.
I think I'll kind of jump on what you just said, Kojo, because I think maybe one of our problems I don't know how deep or how ingrained it is in our generation, but we're very solutions oriented in that we offer solutions from the word go. Like, you can tell me about a problem. Oh, why don't you just do this? We don't ask questions to result in a solution? So that communication and that finding and searching part is often missing. And it's something I always say. I always say, like, we can't just jump to the conclusion that this is the case or we need to do this. We need to communicate and ascertain what options are available, then make an informed decision based on what resources are available. Okay, what the full scope of the circumstance. Some, in the heat of it, there are things you never consider because you're in the moment. You're thinking, you're dead set on one lane, right? And often you need someone coming from another, an outsider. And in the context of marriage, sometimes that's your wife when you come home and tell her something, or your husband when you come home and tell him something. Like, you need that exchange to extend your scope of and your vision. I always say this, like, God created us with eyes, and our eyes have such a wide field and scope of vision, but it's interesting how we can never really see ourselves. Like, we can see aspects of ourselves, but if we're just looking dead ahead, I mean, look in the mirror, of course, it's a reflection, but looking dead ahead, we can never really see ourselves. But we have such a wide scope of vision. So it's clear that God intended this design so that we, to some extent, have to depend on other people, have to depend on others and their perspective and their viewpoint. You know, someone may say, oh, it's safe to walk that way. From another perspective, that is the most dangerous step. And we should be humble enough to accept exchange from people who have a different perspective so that we can understand the lay of the land a little bit better. Sometimes we feel like we know everything, but we don't. I think that's very important because that exchange can often lead to better solutions than what one may have had in their mind initially. You know, I mean, money answers all things, man. I help. Not everybody will have that as a fallback or a solution. In some circumstances, you say, okay, how much is this job paying? Okay, well, the childcare, all of these expenses that will come up because you're going to, pursue that job. Okay, what are the benefits? Okay, well, taking all of it into consideration, still our expenses are going to wipe that out. But if you do this instead, you talk it through, you discuss, and then you establish a decision which is an agreement between the two of you that's workable in the relationship.
I also wanted to throw something in as well. This is one of the uncomfortable realities of servanthood, is that whilst we like to hope that the scales are balanced when we enter into a relationship like this, sometimes you will find that the scale is tipped, sometimes even to heavier to your end. And so servanthood isn't about 50-50, and it doesn't have anything to do with being fair. Servanthood is. And whilst it is not good for you to kill yourself because of love, because self-care is necessary so that we have longevity and proper function. But one of the other realities of marriage is when we say for better or for worse, the marriage vows are great, The marriage vows are great. We don't understand them when we're saying them, You have to live them to know what they mean. And when you say for better or for worse, sometimes it could be years of worse. And sometimes it means you carrying a heavier load for the vision, for the dream, for the plan. And another side of that is this. I have 3 children, I'm fortunate. And I want them to be informed about what it really looks like. I don't want them to be deluded. I want my children to know that marriage has arguments and marriage has love.
Yeah.
I want them to see when marriage gets cracks and how they're filled. I want them to see what restoration looks like. So they have to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. I also want them to know what it is to bow down to each other, so that when they hit their relationships, they see a guy. I'll tell my daughter, I say, no, he's not the one. Do you know what I mean? I want her to know when my back is turned what a good man is. I want my son to know what a good woman is. Because when I look at the fact that, and my kids will see it, there are times when I take the reins and there are times when their mum takes the reins. The marriage on a monthly basis is like this. Sometimes she's doing more, sometimes I'm doing a bit more. Certain things in the home, she's doing a heck of a lot more. And I'm doing other things that are meaningful to her. It doesn't look like this all the time. My marriage is not like that. And that, for me, is still stability. Is it fair? No. And so that's one of the other sides to it. And once we can accept that, actually, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. That's it. Now, let's forget people abusing another. Forget that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about, I'm here for you. If we both think like that, come on now.
I agree.
Word.
I think even to add to that, I think going into it before you're even married, or before before you take on any opportunities that come your way, is to understand that it's always possible that things will change. That how you serve will change, how that person serves you, how you both serve the marriage will change.
Yes.
It's to have that understanding anyway. I know there's people don't usually talk about this anymore, but I still know there's definitely people who don't like change. There's a lot of people who struggle when it comes to change, right? But you have to acknowledge, especially, it's one thing if you're on your own, but when you've incorporated someone else into your life, or even you have kids, you have to understand things will change. Not everything's going to be comfortable, right? And not everything's going to go your way or how you've planned. But the key thing is, which everyone's alluding to, is to communicate about it, because some of those changes are not actually bad. You know, some of those changes are actually beneficial and positive.
Yeah.
And what could be playing on your mind is what Kojo didn't even allude to. Now he actually spoke about it, was it's just you. You know, if you're the one that's a bit negative, that could just be you, right? Whatever fears or issues that you might have or misunderstandings. And all it takes is communication to clear that up. But it starts with being able to foresee that and really paying attention. Okay, if we need to get here, there are going to be things that we may need to change because we can't keep on doing the same thing. But we have to be able to communicate that. I think, I can't remember the show, but it was a show on Netflix. And it was like I don't know if everyone's seen Modern Family, right? It was a show that was like that, but a black version, which is kind of like a mockumentary type of thing, because the guy is actually known in his position, where the woman in the TV series was Tamia, the singer, right? And the guy was like a music executive. What they agreed before they got married was, so he was the struggling music exec and she was a high-flying lawyer. So she was actually the breadwinner. But what they agreed is he will continue to work in his craft, and the moment he can retire her, he's going to do it. And he's going to give her whatever she wants after that. It happened. He became a high flyer. You know, American houses already. I'm jealous of all you guys, the types of houses that you can, the matter I would, but the types of houses you guys can get for the prices that you get them for, we're all jealous. And it got to a point where there was a big issue. The issue started is because she no longer wanted to just be at home. She felt her identity was a lawyer. Now her identity is just a mom. The kids are grown. They have people already there, like nannies and things like that. And she just felt like she wanted to do more for herself. But she didn't communicate that to her husband. He was looking at the situation as, what is she complaining for? I've done my part. What I agreed, I've done it. I've done it fully. You should be free. You should be enjoying life. You know, and there was a lot of friction where now he started to resent her a little bit because she's complaining, but he's done everything that he's supposed to do. And she started to resent him a little bit because he's not understanding. It wasn't until they communicated at the end, and we don't have time to go into it, but it was quite funny, some of the things that happened in between, how he felt as a man and etc. And the things that you're trying to compensate for, because you can understand what was going on. But it came to the point where, like 3 episodes later, that's when they communicated about the issue. And all she wanted was to support. All she wanted was for him to support her and just recognize the new dream that she had. She didn't even want to go back to being a lawyer, but she wanted to do something. And the moment that he did that, all of a sudden their marriage got back on track. Everything was fine. So these things do happen. They really do happen. Like, so you have to be aware and be able to communicate and be able to react to them, and just be careful and not allow, you know, our marriages to really be jeopardized because of it. And I love that series anyway. I'll try to remember it, but it really, there's a lot of things that we can say from that, but it did teach me a lot at the time when it was out, that what are the best ways to deal with things when you're married? Because again, we're all coming from places where we have to really learn on the job. It's difficult, but yeah, there are a lot of things a lot of single mindsets that we have that are problematic. But take our time when we're married and be able to work with the other person, and we should be able to figure a lot of things out.
Absolutely, bro. You know, and it just makes me think, you know, I think a lot of times you're hearing more stories like this, where the woman develops a career or whatever suddenly, and, you know, and the reality is, I think the conversation that needs to be that, and that's why I said I love that what that lady said, and I've also got her name now. I've gone look for it, but what she was alluding to is that process of being heard. So as much as obviously, you know, we, she wanted also support. I can guarantee. Do you know what he needed as well? Just to be heard, just to be understood, just to know that, you know what, just because now you're going to work, you're not going to forget about him, that you're not going to stop serving. You know what I mean? Because that's why I started realizing it's the fear of it's not that you got a job or your career or that you're high flying. It is the fact that will that now change your dynamic in terms of how also the serving that was happening beforehand. That's the big question. How is that serving going to look like? So a lot of times I think when I'm hearing, especially when I'm hearing like things in the manosphere and stuff like that in the further regions of the internet, the biggest issue they have is, if I'm doing my job and I'm staying consistent, why can't you stay consistent? But it doesn't always apply like that, because things do change, right? But the reality is, behind that statement, if we can actually get deeper behind that statement, what's behind it? It's not the fact that change is happening; it's the fact that change is happening to a particular to a particular degree, that the person's now viewing it as something's going to happen. Do you know what I'm saying? So something's going to change. And oftentimes what it is the emotional care that the man is thinking about. He's not thinking about your money. You're increasing your money and you're increasing your job. He's not thinking about that. He's thinking about the fact, will your emotional care for me change? And I think that's the honest conversation that needs to happen. Is always about, will that shift? Now, you know what I mean? Can I now ask you for something without you going, you know what my position is now? I can't do that now. I'm a lawyer now. Or that is where the mind goes to. The mind as a man, your mind is already going 3 steps ahead, because you're already thinking, how do I make sure we're on a consistent path? And that's where sometimes we can get tripped up too, because also, you know, whilst you're thinking ahead, you actually have to think about now too. So what is a present feeling and what's happening to you right now, so that you understand, so that you understand what's happening to you personally, so that you don't react, so that your reaction doesn't become one that is going to be detrimental long term. And that's the hardest thing, I think, specifically for a man who has been, like the gentleman was, having a consistent path and then seeing the change in his woman's aspects. You know, I think that's where the difficulty comes in as well, you know? Yeah.
For real. And the shoe would be the same on the other foot, you know, if he was getting a promotion and moving up in the world. To be honest with you, it's funny because
we can't talk about that one. That one, the ladies want to have it. But you're absolutely right. Talk about it.
No, talk about it. I mean, I'm dropping it just because I think the reality is, with a lot of issues, we try and make it like it's a gender specific issue, in the sense that the concept of it only applies to women, but actually it applies to both sides of the fence. And mentioning that should hopefully mean that it's easier to understand when something like this happens. I mean, one of the examples I thought of is when your wife gives birth, you know, naturally she's not going to be able to do a lot of the things that she had done you know, even in pregnancy, she's not going to be able to do a lot of the things which or it's safe to assume that she's not going to be able to do. If she can and does, like, we praise God. But if she doesn't, then it's understanding that, you know, something has changed. And because something has changed, it's had a knock-on effect. That doesn't mean it's bad or wrong, or, you know, somebody's out of line. It just means things have changed. So you've got to reevaluate, reassess, and pick up where you can and where you can't. Pray for grace, seek counsel. You know, there are always solutions that can be applied to support a difficult situation and circumstance. You know, I tend to think that a lot of the problems we have is that, you know, I guess sometimes we often just want a quick fix. You know, and I think sometimes in even searching for answers, there's wisdom to be attained in the journey itself, in the pathway, in realizing that you are not the be all and end all of information. Like, you can seek for support in this pathway, in this journey, in this thing that you're trying to do. You can go, and the more you seek for support, you know, in the multitude of counsels, there's safety. You learn so much more, which may not even be relevant to your today, but that future. And you learn things that aren't relevant to the future, but are relevant to today. And you take it all, keep it in your back pocket, and you use what you can. So definitely, bro. Definitely. It's word.
Okay. Even on that note, I'm going to mention, there was 2 questions that were asked of me in the beginning. And because TD, you mentioned about, you know, one of the end all be all of information, I'm going to address those 2 questions. So the first question is to do with what book I mentioned in the beginning. So I'm going to mention it again. Disciplines of a Godly Man. There is also a version for women called Disciplines of a Godly Woman. Now, what's important about this is, although we was made in the same image of God, we were made for different purposes. So the one for women addresses women's specific things, women's specific roles, which I think is the best thing. There's also one for teenagers, one for children. It's written by a pastor and his wife. So don't be afraid to learn. You know, we have the Bible there, we have different books. You know, do your research so you know that the source of the writer, you know, whatever book you're going to pick up, is a reputable person. But there's so much understanding that we can gain just through revelation, whether that's through sermons, reading ourselves, or just reading books, especially because some of these books delve into practical issues that we've been discussing today. You know, and the key thing is we haven't tried to be super spiritual about things. We've mentioned spiritual aspects, but we've also tried to give a practical understanding, which for me is great. And another question was to do with counseling, right? So right now, you know, I don't see a reason why anyone would want to not have counseling. Although some people refuse, some people, you know, don't want it for whatever reason. Because having that third party there can help so much on the lead up. And it's important. One of the things I learned was you don't even need to have a wedding date. Just have the counseling anyway. Because that can actually help you understand, is this person truly for me? Am I truly for this person? When you have the wedding date there, that can be a distraction, that can equate to any pressure. Oh my gosh, I've already proposed. Oh my gosh, I've already, you know, committed this person to everyone else. And even though you feel it's not right, you can still go ahead with it. And we know what happens when we go ahead, right? So don't be afraid to say, okay, Pastor, this is the person I want to introduce you to. And we want to have a few sessions, just have discussions. And you don't need just one. You can have more than one. You know, me and my missus have already had a group session in her church, right? There's 10 other couples there. Amazing. I loved it. I would love to do it again. You know, in my church, we do one-on-one sessions. We'll definitely do that. And we also agreed, which is going to be, let's say, a reflection of our maturity in this relationship, to do one on our own accord. So there's something else that we're going to incorporate as well, that we're going to use to say, okay, where we are now, let's do this and let's tackle these things and let's have these discussions. And it really delves into detailed issues, you know. So, and obviously you have guys like us, people around on podcasts, you talk about these things, whether you reject it, whether you accept it or not, you know, these things, we're here to help, right? All these things, and we're not just talking for the sake of it. We're here to actually help from experience, from things that we've seen, things that we've had to speak to other people about. It's almost like you get to a place where you understand, do you know what? I get you, but this is the way it needs to go to make it work. This is why I say a lot of us, we know what we want, we know what we care about, but trying to make it work, we need to refine our understanding really, like, very deeply, and not hold on to old ways of thinking. But yeah, I'll leave it there.
Any more thoughts, TD?
A lot, man. Some I will save for later. But I think to bring it back to that core question of servanthood in marriage and what is my role. Everyone's role on both sides of the fence is to serve. We both have to serve. You know, that may look like different things for different people. It may look like different things for man and wife, but ultimately service is interwoven into the very fabric of marriage, and the level of your service could make or break your marriage if you're somebody who withholds the service from your spouse. You know, what I like to call and dub your reasonable service. You know, considering the estate in which you've entered, then one really has to ask the question: why did you get married then? Why did you get married if you weren't prepared to do this for this person? You know, and again, coming to hit all the tones, you know, in terms of, okay, there's duty and responsibility, there's love and feelings, and, you know, all of these things that have to be considered. But, you know, this sense of service, it cuts across all of them, cuts across every single tone. So service it's not a flat thing. It's not something that is just, okay, it's by the book. You know, sometimes you do things out of your feelings of love and, you know, elation. Sometimes, you know, the eros is going and you decide to serve in a certain way to spice things up or whatever. At other times it's because, man, I don't really want to do this, but it's got to be done. I got to do. I got to get down and dirty. I got to whatever, like something that maybe irks you, but it's like, this is the need that has arisen. A need has arisen. A need has arisen. And I need to respond in kind with my service, and yeah, man, we just got to stay humble, guys. Stay humble and aspire to serve our spouses in the way that they need us to serve them. Sometimes we try and design it in what's in the form and fashion that's suitable and comfortable for us and where we're at. But actually, we have to aspire towards, okay, my partner needs me to serve them in this capacity. I'm not there yet, so I've got to step up. It's a challenge which sometimes we don't appreciate, but it's necessary for the preservation of that relationship.
I love it.
Yeah, man.
Coach.
I'll leave it
I
there.
appreciate it. Okay. All right. JD, any last words? JK, any last words? Sorry. I put JD, but JK.
Nah, it's all good. Do you know what? I'll just thank everyone in the chats, right, for just continually joining us on this journey, but especially for everyone who's responding to Kong or anyone else in your life who says the same thing or feels the same way. Because the Bible calls us, it asks us to be fishermen of people, right? We're not here to convince, but we're here to give. We're here to teach. We're here to show, and that's it. And let God do the work. So thanks to everyone for also helping Kong understand. Whether Kong or anyone else wants to receive it, that's entirely up to him or her. That's entirely up to them, right? But our job is just to give, and that's it. So just thanks everyone, because as Christians, sometimes we let people talk reckless. We let things slide, and enough is enough. We need to put our foot down now. We can't be, allowing a joke to be made of us. Even though there are people in our faith who make a mockery of things, when we know the truth, when we know how things should be done, we should be bold enough to step up and say, we get you, but this is the way it's supposed to be. But ultimately, Kong or anyone else, when Christ is properly revealed to you, then you're going to fully understand, some of the things that we say. It's just in the meantime, your heart is hardened. Trust me, I gave my life to Christ at 27. All the things that Kong is saying, I used to say myself, even worse. Trust me. I used to say I'd rather burn down churches than be a part of them. I used to say God does not exist. I used to say all types of things. But here I am. Here I am. So there's no lost cause. I came to Christ because people were talking to me about Christ, even when I was anti. So keep going, man. We love you all.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate it. All right, listen. Woo, that was an enthralling conversation. See, we took some deep routes, And like I said, I didn't want to talk too much because I wanted to let you guys free flow and just have that base to talk, get your thoughts out as well. Audience, I hope you've enjoyed this type of conversation. Like I said, we're trying to rearrange the perspective of marriage and rearrange the ideas of marriage. And it's not easy. Sometimes people have, a particular idea of it. And we want them to understand that, love is important, and how we serve in that marriage is also very much important, because not only is it Christ-like, it's actually ordered for us to do. We should serve one another. So just to help those of us who are struggling with a servitude aspect, it's not for me, it's not slavery. Because it's done out of love, number one. Number two, if both people are serving, you're both winning. You know what I mean? So if everybody has that mindset, we end up winning. So for those of you who obviously I've enjoyed the conversation, make sure you are leaving a comment below the video when it finishes. Leave a like as well, share it, subscribe as well to the channel as well. And we look forward to seeing you guys a little bit later on. I'll be back on a little bit later on tonight. There's a few things we need to talk about as well. So I know recently in America, just a few hours ago, there was an LSU team of black girls who won the basketball game, and Mr. Joe Biden has decided he wants to invite the white team that lost. You know what?
Oh, I didn't know
There's
that.
no bounds. There's just no bounds.
Whoa.
He's invited both of them, but he's invited also the white team too, which is unprecedented. They don't invite the losing team. Yeah, they don't invite the losing team. So he's inviting both LSU and Iowa, and also a young lady as well. Angela, I think it's Angeline Reese.
Angel Reese, I think.
Angel Reese, yes, too. She too obviously has been targeted by media as well, social media rather than media, and some people who obviously in that space who have attacked her and said how she's been sportsmanlike in her conduct, all because she celebrated. You know what I mean? You can't even celebrate these days. You know, you can't even enjoy your win as a young black woman. You can't even enjoy your win because apparently the Karens are affected by it. So, you know, we're gonna talk about it later on tonight. We're gonna talk about it later on tonight and discuss it. So make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification uploads, and we'll see you again soon. But don't forget, you know, you can't leave here without leaving with a little something.
I'm leaving here with something. You know what I mean? I'm from around the way. I'm leaving with something.
Don't come here, you don't leave with something, then I don't know what is good for you. But you know what? This person also closes us out all the time because you know what? On this particular watch, you can't move that way, Kong. We appreciate you, but you can't move like that with the Jesus Christ here. Okay?
Not on my watch. Not on my watch.
There you go.
All right. In good faith. Good night, guys. We'll see